Like calling the same method once again.
Yes, but just give me a moment.
Okay.
Switch. Okay. So imagine we are actually trying to read the date here. Where did I input date format? String s dot next. Okay. So now this code is, let's simply throw. Okay. Let's, instead of throwing, if I put a catch block, I'll be able to, again I can add a catch clause, and here I can say that sysout and sorry invalid date, enter again. I can say this, and again I can put this. Okay, again, because this is also okay, let me just create this scanner as outside so that I can use it everywhere. So here we can do it like this, but again, uh, because we have okay, I think this parse exception, throws parse exception, why it is not showing an error, because there is an error here. Okay, now if you see this again, this may because this code may again throw an exception of parse
Yes.
exception. We can put a try catch block here, but again we cannot use that same logic to go on and on again. Okay, even if we put a surround try catch block, and we can ask the user again, so it will becomes like an code that becomes like unmanageable or something that will never end up in proper thing. So this is not properly used for looping. I just gave an example in ways where one cleanup operation can be done and one small extra thing can be asked or something like that. Ideally, if we want to have that kind of looping way of asking, correct way of coding is something like this. We can put it in true in a while loop. This while loop will be in an infinite loop because this is always true and it will never come out. So this is an infinite loop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call printer s dot next here, and I'm going to put everything here. And because this may throw an exception, because this may throw an exception, I can put a try catch block, sorry, not throws. Instead, I can put a surround with try catch block, and if the code did not throw any exception, I can simply break. Now, if you see what this does, Now, do you understand that this is a better way of doing? Because printer, if there is no error in this particular line number 22 will get executed. So, because this break will make sure that we'll come out of this loop and we'll be continuing with the rest of the code. In case if he has given any invalid date, what happens is it will be throwing a parse exception. And once parse, because we have caught that exception, the program will not quit. And again, this reaches this line, which takes the control back to line number 18. And again, the same loop continues. So this way, we can actually do it that looping kind of thing. Now, if we run this program, so now if I enter A, it says invalid date, enter again. Now if I enter 2015-04, only again it says invalid date, enter again. So only when I enter a date that is matching with that format, this will be accepting and exiting. So if we want that kind of looping way of getting things done, we need a loop. We should not use try catch blocks for looping or those kinds of logics. You got it, Kishore?
Yeah, yeah, with the I got it.
Yeah. So that was just an example I gave to show you how we can catch and try again. Sometimes we will have to do those kinds of things. And also we can create our custom exceptions as you have missed last few minutes. We can
Yeah.
actually create custom exceptions by extending an exception class or runtime exception class. If we extend from exception class, it will become a checked exception. So it becomes mandatory that we actually manage handle this particular error exception. If we extend it from runtime exception, this is an unchecked exception. So we don't have to catch it. Okay, but again, it is always a good idea to catch all the exceptions and do proper closure kind of things. Okay, we will be seeing more of that kind of examples as we go forward. Now let me switch to another workspace. uh,
So with the one more thing, I
yeah.
mean, when we code all these exceptions,
Mm.
when debug will be useful? I mean, uh, uh,
No, debug is useful while you are developing. Okay, whereas exceptions will be useful when the code is actually in production and is running. Okay, so what happens is all these error messages, exceptions, whatever we print and all will be going to some log file. Okay, so at that particular point of time, you cannot really stop the production code and do debug and all, right? So what you will do, you will open the log files that are generated and see the messages that got generated by these exceptions and all.
okay,
Okay, so but when you are developing, you don't have to rely on this exceptions alone. You can simply run the code and do put a breakpoint and debug. But in production, you cannot. You only way you can do that analysis is by going through the exceptions and going through the stack traces, logs and all. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. Anyways, exceptions are not mainly meant for only debugging or finding out issues. Exceptions are mainly meant for making sure even in case something that we haven't expected pops up, we handle that kind of scenarios. Okay, that's what it is meant for. Say for example, in your mainframe, say you have got a particular tape to the current place where you're reading it. Okay, say your program has caught an exception. Okay, or some error condition has come in the program. If the program simply quits without making sure that you close the tape or you put back the tape where it came from, or whether you discard the tape or not, what happens is that particular tape will still be in a position that can be read. Okay, so exceptions are mainly used for that kind of scenarios, to recover from unexpected scenarios. Okay, whereas debugging is more like finding out what the issue is. So whereas exceptions are writing some more code to make sure even if some error occurs, you will be able to safely recover. Okay, you are going to close a certain drive, certain disk, certain tape. You are going to make sure that tape again goes back to that secondary memory or whatever mainframe terminals. I don't exactly remember these days, but you get the point, right? So it's mainly to recover from some unexpected scenario within your code itself. Okay, so that it won't cause any obstruction, or it won't cause any problem for the running code. Or suddenly if some exception occurs, ICICI Bank website goes down, we will not be able to we will not be using ICICI website at all. Okay, so where exceptions will provide that kind of graceful capturing and recording the errors and making sure everything else works fine. Okay. Any other questions, Kishore or Srinivas? Okay.
No, Buddha.
Okay, fine. Let me just switch to the previous workspace and uh, now if you have remembered the Scramble application that we have done earlier, that Scrambled application is actually using a class. Okay, where are the words? Fire fingers. Instead of now, we're getting scrambled. Okay, now let's see this game. Here we have created a class called Fiery Fingers, which is extending from game. So any new game method is going to start a new game, and it is showing a specific. It is taking a random index, and that from that index we are reading from a specific array and putting over here. Okay. If you see in the game class, we have actually created that words array and scrambled array. Okay, wherein we are going to put the words that are there that we want to be part of our game, and we can simply go ahead and use this. But can you see an obvious problem with this? Can either of you mention what is the problem with this kind of uh, with this particular progress state of program that we currently have?
Any new additions to the
Each
scrambled
time I have
words
to make
should
an
be.
entry.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you guys said. Srinivas, so what were you telling?
No, what I was saying is, if we need to add a new word, then the class needs to be changed.
Yes, that is one obviously glaring problem. And in Kishore, what were you about to tell?
Yeah, the same thing, but I mean, if any new entry, we need to make an entry here each time.
Yes, exactly. So you have actually come to a very valid point. In fact, that is the point of this whole session, actually. And that is one problem. And other problem is that's okay. Imagine we don't have to add any more words. We have figured out all the words that we want to put in, but that there can be thousands or 1500 words that we want to make sure that our game has. So at that time, what happens is our program becomes very large. Okay, very huge. Okay, for each word we are actually putting these two, right. So if we want to put 1500 words in our words array and scrambled array, it doesn't matter. We can have thousands of words arrays and all, but the problem is this game constructor. How many are you going to create? Okay, it will become too much. So if we have to every time write all that words here, it will become unmanageable. Okay, so it is unnecessarily long. So what we actually what is the solution? Can anyone come up with a solution? Forget about Java programming. If you have to solve this problem without worrying about the Java syntax and all, how would you solve that problem?
We should not create
We
this
need to
as an
keep all. Yep.
Okay. Say it again, please. Srinivas, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was saying that we can keep all these words in a file.
And any other ideas? I heard something like DB or something. Someone said. Okay. See the other. To be precise, yes, we can put the words in a file and read that file, so that our program will be very small. Okay. So, although I have not shown you exact way of solving it in any, putting it in any file and all, that's an obvious solution. So our simple program also needs some way of reading from a specific file and reading all the words and all, right? So that's what we are going to learn how to do that. Okay, we are going to move all these words to a file and read the words and put it in an array, and thereby we will also learn how to do those things in Java. And the other solution is database, putting the words in database. File is also kind of database only. Okay, file is no different from a database. But uh, if you are if you are thinking about RDBMS, yes, that is a different way of storing. File is one way of one kind of database, whereas DBMS RDBMS is another kind of database. Okay, so but as throughout this course, once we are done with core Java part, we will be going enhancing our program to actually make use of uh, databases and all. But for now, let's not worry about how to get things done with database, RDBMS to be precise, and let's see how we can get these things done in files. Okay, so before we tackle this problem, let's learn some basics of what is possible through core Java and all, through Java, and what is there in files and all. So uh, one class, from now onwards, even in our collections, you won't be seeing the new features of the programming language. Okay, all the programming language features are over, you with exceptions. Okay, there are some small concepts like threading and annotations and enumerations, but apart from that, all the programming language concepts are over. From now onwards, we will be learning some basic classes that they have created for us to be able to do. So file is a class that we are going to learn how to use, and from now onwards you will be seeing more and more classes. Okay, you ask tree set, the hash map, array list, and all are a part of collections, right? They are all different classes. Okay, they are not actually a programming language, part of Java programming language. They are classes created and added to the Java programming language, so that you will be able to do some things quickly. Okay, so they are simply using the methodologies that we have already defined in methods and arrays and all those things. Okay, the same way, files is also a class using which we will be able to access files and all. And but we cannot read the content of a file by using this file class. Okay, we will be able to read the metadata, like okay, how big is the file, what is the name of the file, what is the parent folder of the file, and all these kinds of things we'll be able to do using file class. Okay, so there are many ways, you will be there are many ways to actually read a file, and there are many operations that we can do on this. Okay, all these simple screenshots are actually demonstrating what are all the things that we can do. If you see the first example, we are creating a file object and we are giving a path like c colon slash slash data slash slash input file dot txt. Okay, why did we give two slashes? Because a single slash has a specific meaning in our Java programming language. I'll come back to that. Okay. So we have mentioned new file of, we have passed a string of a file that exists in our file system, or it may or may not exist. Okay, we don't know. So to check whether that specific file, whatever whose path has been given while creating the file object, is there or not, we actually use the file.exist method. If we want to find out the size of it, we'll be using file.length method. Okay, and if we want to delete that file, we'll use file.delete method. Okay, if we want to create a specific directory, we can simply give a directory path and call the method mkdir on file object or mkdirs. Mkdir will create a this. If you see this example, for mkdir to work, both this users as well as Jacob enko method should be sorry, folder should be there. From then, new directory will be created. Instead, if we use mkdirs, we will be even if one of these folders don't exist, they will be created, and automatically the child folders will be created. Okay, and if we want to rename a file, we'll be able to use file.rename like this. Okay, file.rename to we'll be able to give a new file object, and that new file object's name will be used to on the actual file system. Okay. Also, if we want to say, for example, get all the files that are there in a specific folder, we can use list files method. Therein, we will be able to navigate all these particular problems. Now, Kishore, on one first couple of sessions, you asked me a question. With this knowledge, whatever we have seen, can we actually navigate all the file system and all? Uh, at that time, I said we cannot, but this is how we will be able to do. We will be able to do a list files on a specific directory, and then we will be able to perform all the again each file or directory will be created as file. And imagine the file class is not only for files, even a directory is also kind of file only. Okay, so in actual physical sense, if you go, that is also a file only. Okay, uh, so there are some new concepts called as streams. That stream is a sequence of data. That's it. Okay. So one is input stream and another one is output stream that we will be able to use. Input stream is something, as I said, the file class, we cannot use the file class to actually read the data from the file or write the data to the file. We can only read the metadata and do basic operations like deleting the file, renaming the file, moving the file from one location to another, copying files. Those, even copying files we cannot do. Okay. Whereas input stream and output stream will actually let us do that. Okay, read the data from the file or write the data to the file. Input stream is used to read the data, whereas output stream is used to write the data. Okay. So you have already seen some streams. Okay, if you remember from the day one, we have been using scanner class, wherein we are giving system.in, and that system.in is something we are telling, okay, my dear scanner, please use the standard input. Okay, system.in is the standard input that we are telling. Okay, for computer, standard input is keyboard. Okay, so scanner will keep observing on the keep an eye on the whatever input that is coming from the system.in. Okay, and whereas system.out.println, if you remember, system when for from day one we are using system.out.println. What does it mean? It means to the standard output, whatever it may be. Okay, it may be monitor for the computer, or if we are programming for a speaker, it may be audio, whatever it may be. When we say system.out.println, then we are putting that particular output to the standard output stream. Okay, so what really happens is whatever we are typing on the keyboard, that goes and sits in a standard input stream. Okay, whatever characters we type in that same order, they will go and sit in the input stream. okay, standard system input stream. Whatever that we want to display on the monitor, we have to write it into standard output or system output, and they will be displayed on the screen. So this is how we'll be able to do. And along with these two, there is one more thing that is called as a standard error, that we can actually use like system.error. Okay, so we have been using system.out.println, right? We can also use system.error.println. Okay, so before I actually go any further, let me just show you some small examples on simple file, and then I'll go there. I'm just going to create a JUnit test so that I can run multiple things independently. Test public void. Okay, now file f equals to new file. We'll create a file object. Okay, and for that, if you see, we have to pass either a path name as a string or URI. URI is another type of class that can represent either a file that is there on the file system or an internet URL, etc. So just imagine that we have to use a okay, one way to do is give the path name. Okay, let's user slash buddha slash trash slash and new file.txt. Now, I told you that we have to use double slashes, right? Double slashes is only if we have to use a backward slash. Okay, let me show that as an example in sysout itself before I come to this. Now, so far you have been using println like this. Okay, so whenever we say hello world, this is printing hello world, and then whenever we say hello world again, what is actually happening? It is printing hello world, and then it is printing hello world again in a new line, right? So what really is happening is this println method is inserting a new line character at the end of whatever we are printing. That's why we are actually getting a new then the subsequent prints are happening within this. What if we want to print hello and world in a two different lines, but we don't want to use two different sysouts? To do that, what we can do is actually we can use something called as /n. Okay, again in Linux and Windows there is slight difference. In Linux it is /n, whereas in Windows it is /r/n. Okay, so /r is a carriage return, and /n is a new line character. So when we print, when we execute this program, what happens is now hello, and then the world is printed in next line because we have printed a new line character which tells this console output to actually print the rest of the characters in a new line. Okay, so this /n has a specific meaning, and the same way /t has another meaning. Okay, /t means print a tab character. Okay, now we have, so if you see, we only kept one space, but again there is so much space, right? That's because /t indicates a tab character. That way there are many other such characters, and this slash is actually used as an escape sequence. This is called as an escape sequence. Okay, because here if you see why n did not get printed, n did not get printed because they have written this Java, they have coded in Java in such a way that whenever there is slash, the backward slash, the immediate character will be interpreted as a special character. It doesn't interpret n as a something that it has to print as n. Instead, it understands both of these together, saying that okay, I have to print a new line character here. Okay, so the /n has been given a different meaning, and /t has been given a different meaning. The same way, many other characters are also given different meanings. /b means backspace and all. And so this way we can actually give a special character in a string. Now, how do we print a double slash then? How do we print a slash then? What if we want to really print this slash n? How do we do that? Can anyone guess? We want to really print the output as hello slash n space world. How do we print that kind of output?
Use double slash.
Obviously, so that's a pretty simple guess. So now when we use double slash, it will be printing that as, so double slash and slash means a single slash in Java terminal. In fact, it's not only for Java, it's actually for every many other programming language that are coming these days. Okay, if you are familiar with VB script or something, you may have seen that they also use single quotes to indicate a string. So there, they actually enclose the double quotes inside a single quoted string so that they will be directly getting it. So, but all most of the modern programming languages don't allow that kind of thing. So that is the exact reason why my example has contained double slashes in these examples. Okay, uh, but I could have, because this is Windows, I could have also used the forward slashes. But I wanted to show you an example. But same is not true for forward slash. Forward slash doesn't have any meaning. In Forward slash means print forward slash. That's it. Okay. So if we do this, we don't have to put double slash or anything. That is the reason why we did not get any error when we kept like this. Instead, if we kept like this path will be considered as a whole different path, something that has a tab character in the path. So that is how it will be treated, and that path will not be found. Okay, so this way you will be able to actually use, if we are using forward slash, you don't have to put double slash, but if you are using backward slash, you have to put two slashes if you want to mean slash. Okay, so now as we
Uh,
kept that aside,
Buddha, 1 minute. But in general, what slash we use, I forgot. I mean, in URL, forward slash or backward, or any directory if I want to navigate.
no, it varies from operating system. If it is Windows, we can use either backward slash or forward slash. Both have same meaning. But in Unix, we cannot use the slashes. If we have pwd, if we can say slash users slash buddha slash trash. Okay, that will take us to the trash folder. But we cannot say, if you see what happened is this simply could not understand this. Okay, so Linux doesn't allow us to use the backward slashes. The forward slashes are mandatory for any paths that are used in Unix. Okay, whereas in Windows you can use either of them.
Okay.
Okay, uh, so in Java, Java also allows you to use any of them. Let us just see. Okay, now this new file.txt. Now if we want to see if this file is there or not, we will simply be calling the exist method. Now if we run the program, we will get a false because that file doesn't exist. Okay, instead if we take some file that is already there, now it says this exists. Okay, now let's try to see if Java does it properly if we use this backward slashes. Why I'm getting error? Because a single slash doesn't have any meaning. But why I didn't get an error when I kept the slash here? Because slash t has a specific meaning. Okay, now because we want to indicate these as slashes, we have to put two slashes. Now if we run the program, we get a false. Okay, now if you had observed, what has happened is Unix doesn't allow you to use backward slashes if you want to actually write a program that accesses files. And now, any other question, Kishore?
No, so yours is Unix. I mean, yours is Mac computer,
Yes, yes. Mine is Mac, so
Mac operating system.
Unix flavor. So I'll have to use a forward slash to indicate any path.
Okay.
Okay. In Windows, both slashes works the same way. So even in Java program, you can use any slash. Doesn't matter. But if you want to use backward slash, you have to use two slashes. That's mandatory. Okay. Now let's go forward. And if we want to delete the file, if we say delete f dot delete, that file will be deleted. Okay. If we want to print out how much size that file is occupying, we can use f dot length. So this should be printing the number of bytes that particular file is occupying on the file system. And now if you see that file is occupying 37 bytes, and 37 is what we got over here. Okay, and even directories are also files in terms of Java. Okay, so now if I say file slash user slash buddha slash trash slash new folder, sorry, f is already used, so I'm using d dot exists. And now if I say d dot exists, that doesn't exist. Now if I want to create the directory, I can use either mkdirs or mkdir. So mkdirs may it can create parent folders also if they are missing, whereas mkdir needs all the parent folders. Okay, this users buddha slash trash slash new folder till trash it has to have. Okay, then it can create new folder if you use mkdir. So depending upon your requirement, you will be using those things. Okay, so when we do this, now what happens is when we run the program, we get a false. Now we got it true. Okay, why? Because the folder is already created. We should be able to see a new folder over here. New folder. Okay, and now can delete it. Okay, so as I said, this can be only used to read the metadata only. Okay, so if I say d dot get absolute path, get path, canonical path, free space, all these things are only metadata only. There is no function to actually read content in a file. Okay, so we can even set the file as read only and all. We can rename it, and rename takes a file object. So we have to create a new file object and pass that file object. Okay, so now did you understand the difference between the actual file that is there on the file system that exists on my computer and the file object I'm creating here? What's the difference? Can anyone give me? You're waiting politely for others to speak.
No, but I mean, no difference, right?
There is a lot of difference. This is a Java object. This is not the file actually. Okay, so this file may or may a particular file object can point to a file that is not there. If you should remember, this file is not there. This f does not exist. When we run the program, this does not exist. So we are creating a file object, but that doesn't mean that file will be there on the file system. Okay, so that's the difference between a file object that we create in Java and the file object that is there on the actual file system. Okay, so this is just a pointer. Okay, uh, currently it is trying to point to this particular path, and that path there is no file at that particular path. So if we try to read the size of this file, we will not be getting any size. Okay, it doesn't have, oh sorry, it doesn't, that file doesn't have any length at all, because that file itself does not exist. Okay, so remember, these two are different. This is just a pointer, this is not the actual file. Okay, so you will not be able to read or do anything. If whenever you perform an operation on this, those operations will be replicated on our file system. Okay, so both are different, so try to understand that difference. Now, as I said, we have system.out.println, and if we say hello out, that these particular characters are being passed to the output standard output stream. Okay, and then if we say error, they will be passed to the error stream. And now if you see, this got printed in red because anything that is there in red color, error stream will be printed in red color by the Eclipse automatically. Okay, so that's why we got this in a red color. And we cannot write to a system.in, because system.in is something for reading only. We can read from system.in, but we cannot write to system.in. Okay, so that's a difference between the input stream and output stream. Error is also kind of output stream only, because we can write data to it. Okay, so now, so how can we use this input stream and output stream to actually read and write the data to and from the file? Okay, in fact, we use files are also just like streams only. We will be able to, because they are also sequence of characters or bytes. Okay, there can be characters or some non-recognizable characters like some image or something. Okay, so everything is a file on our file system. We'll be able to use this input stream and output stream classes to actually read content from and to files. Okay, and if whereas there is another class called as file reader, along with this input stream and output stream. So the file reader and file reader actually comes from input stream reader. We can actually read these as characters. Okay, so when we actually, there are two ways to read a file. One is by using input stream reader, and the one is by using a file reader. Okay, when we are using an input stream reader, we are reading the file as bytes. We don't know whether that file contains individual characters or anything. Okay, all we know is that see, even the individual characters are also can be converted as bytes, right? So we'll be considering that file as a series of bytes rather than series of characters. Okay, so the character a may be read as one number and another number. Okay, because every character takes 2 bytes, at least in theory. We'll be reading two separate bytes if we try to read from that particular input stream reader. Whereas by using file reader, we can call read method that will be reading character by character, the file character by character. Whereas input stream reader, that will be reading the byte by byte. Okay, so the same way we can use file writer class to actually write content to that particular file. Okay. And the same way, we can also use output stream writer, but by using output stream writer, we'll have to write bytes rather than actual characters to the file. Let me give you a small demo of that.
Buddha, in the slide, uh,
I'm sorry, you want me to
the
come?
last slide, yeah.
This one?
So output stream writer class, the
Uh-huh.
class is used for writing stream of characters.
No,
You said
output stream
bytes.
writer is actually used to no, the class we are speaking about is file writer in this slide. So this class is inherited from output stream writer. Okay, so that class, this file writer class can be used. This sentence is maybe confusing, so that's why you may have got confused. But the class means the file writer class.
Okay, okay,
Okay, output stream writer is the base class for this file writer.
okay, inherited. Okay,
Now, because we have this file, and let's see if we have any content in that silly file.txt. Okay, so we have this particular text in this. Now let's try to read the text that is there in the file. So to read the file, there are two ways I said. One is input stream reader, which is coming from java.io package, and this is taking several things. One is an input stream, or okay, it is they are only taking an object of input stream. Okay, so we first have to create an object of input stream in order for us to use these things. So input stream. So file input stream is actually an interface. It's an abstract class. Okay, so input. So what is the actual thing that has been that we can create an object of is file input stream. Why there is file input stream? What is the difference between input stream and file input stream? As I said, the streams is a sequence of characters. Okay, they can be files, or they can be a there can be a web page that that we are trying to access from a remote location, or it can be an email, or it can be a video we are getting. So it can be anything. Okay, so the input stream is like a more generic one that is base for all these things. Okay, file input stream is one such class that we can actually use to create or create a stream, make a specific file as a series sequence of characters. Okay, so we have to use file input stream, and we can either pass the file object or we can directly give the path. If you had observed this file input stream, it has two. Either we can pass path or we can directly pass file object. Okay, we can also create an object called as file descriptor object. It's up to you whether you want to see about that or not, but for now let's not worry about that. So let's simply pass the file object that we already created, which is f. Now we can create an input stream from a file, but if we see is dot read, what we will be getting is we'll be getting a specific sorry we'll be getting character content byte by byte. We don't even have to create this input stream reader for us to do. Even input stream itself can do the job of reading the file input stream, job of reading from a file. So now if we say read, what happens is, now this is saying that this will be throwing an exception. Okay, what are those exceptions? Now if you see unhandled exception, type file not found exception. So we may be trying to access a file and converting it into an input stream, but that file may not be there. So in that cases, we will be getting file not found exception. So what do you want to do? Do you want to change the file name and try again, or do you want to display a message to the user saying that okay, sorry, that file does not exist, etc. So for now, let's not worry about those. Let's simply throw that exception. And this one, file.read, that file may be there, but there can be some other kind of exception, like we may not have access to read the content of the file. So all those kinds of exceptions can be there. So IO exception is one such base exception that will be coming for all the files and all other input output kind of things. So even file not found exception is also coming from extending from IO exception. So there are two ways to fix this. One is we can change this, and now if you see file not found exception has been converted into IO exception. As I said, because IO exception can also represent file not found exception, it simply removed both of them and it only kept IO exception. Now if we read the file, what happens is we'll be reading one single byte from that. Now, once very important thing that we should never ever forget when we are working with files is we have to close whatever we open. We have to close like this. We have to make sure that we close this stream of characters. Otherwise, that memory will be leaking. That memory is called as leaked memory. Okay, so it may make the system slow in a long run. Now, if you see what we got from there is 84. Why did we get 84? Because, as I said, this particular text is not actually read as a text character. They are read as a sequence of bytes. Let me just see. Now, if you see what is the ASCII value for the T, we got 84. Now, if you see what happened over here is it read this file as a series of ASCII bytes. Okay, so if we read that, so what happened is the read method has read one single byte from this file. Now, imagine that if we have some Chinese character, okay, we'll be getting that Chinese character, the first byte of that Chinese character. Okay, so that way we will be able to read file byte by byte. Okay, now what if we want to read that entire file? We have to put it in a loop. Okay, now let's try to understand what this read does. Put our mouse on that, it will be showing us reads the next byte of data from the input stream. The value byte is returned is as an int in range of 0 to 255. If no byte is available because at the end of the file, end of the stream has been reached, the value -1 will be returned. So what happens, and the method blocks until the input data is available. So what does this what is the meaning of this -1 is getting returned? We are getting a number over here, right? So if we have reached the end of the file, this particular read method will be returning a -1. So if we want to read the entire file, what we have to do is while int byte equals to is dot read, while byte is greater than -1, and so this is going to return a byte. Oh, sorry, int only. Okay, byte is already a character, so it doesn't allow me to use the byte as byte already is a data type, right? So it doesn't allow me. So I'm renaming it to b, and then I'll be printing that b, and then I'll be reading that again. And now what happens is we'll be reading that file sequentially until we reach -1. Okay, when we reach -1, that is the indication that we have reached the end of that file. So now it has read all the characters. Okay, it has read 104 next. What is 104? Let us see this page. 104 means small h, and then we should be getting small I, which is 105. So the next character printed is 105. Okay, this way all the characters that are there will be converted into bytes, and they will be returned back. Now, if we want to convert a byte or integer to character, all we have to do is use the cast. So if we use something like this, we will be able to convert that particular character. Okay, now if you see, we have converted that integer to characters. Okay, now because we don't want to print the new line character of every character, so if we just do this, it gets printed in a single line. Generally, this particular loop is also shortened something like this: b equals to is dot read, so generally you may see things like this. We have to define also. Okay, generally you may see some things like this. Okay, int b equals to is read, and then it will be compared with -1, everything in a single line. This way we don't have to do that reading twice. Once, in fact, in reality it happens twice, but you don't have to write that same line of code twice. Okay, so this is a shorthand version of that same thing. And also, if you see the is dot read, or there are other methods also. One is the byte, it takes a byte array. What does it do with a byte array? If we provide, say for example, 10, an array of size 10, it will be reading 10 bytes and will be putting all the 10 bytes in that particular array. That way, if you want to read in blocks, okay, if you don't want to read character by character, instead we want to read say 10 characters and 15 characters at a time, we can create an byte array uh, of size 15, and then we can simply pass that array object that will be simply copying all those 15 characters to this. So what if it doesn't have 15 characters in the file, or if we give 100 over here, there are no 100 characters in the file. So in that case, it will be simply copying whatever number of characters that are available. So whenever it doesn't have any new characters, what it will be doing is, we can understand that by simply going through the IntelliSense, the Java doc is dot read. Now this one, if you see, it is explaining all the things, okay, and it will also be returning the number of characters that have been copied into the buffer. So if we got -1, that means we have reached the end of the a particular file. Okay, so this way we can read file in blocks. Okay, now so this, as I said, this is something that we use to actually read byte by byte. Now what if we want to what is the other class that I explained that we can use to actually read character by character? That is the file reader. Okay, now let's say file reader fr equals to new file reader, and this can either take a file or it can take a string. Let's use the file. It also has, and it is also returning an integer, but it will be reading a character. And now if you see, the main difference is in reading a buffer array. Okay, if you remember, the input stream is actually reading a as byte array. Okay, whereas our file reader can read it as a character array. Okay, in integer, when it is returning as integer, there is no difference actually. Okay, because both are returning integers, both can be casted to characters very easily. So there you don't have any difference, but the actual difference comes when you have this character buffer. Now when you want to do this read, what you have to do is you have to uh, say for example, you have to create a char array, new character array of 15. Now if we say file reader dot read of array is greater than -1, which means the number of character it was able to read some of the characters at least. Now we can simply use this one, remove the matching argument. Now we can directly use this character array like new string of array. Now if we run the program, we'll be seeing the same kind of output. Now if you see what actually we have done, we have read this entire file. Okay, and we also got some extra characters that may be because of the Eclipse not being able to print all that in a proper order that we have already been doing. And also After every time it has read the characters, we have to clear it, otherwise the it will not be removing the existing file. So we have to make sure that we uh, create a new array object like this. Now we will be seeing a clean program. Because what it does is, if we have only 5 characters to read, it will be copying all the 5 characters in the first 5 positions, and it will simply ignore the next 10 positions. Okay, so that's one of the small problem that we have with this copying into the buffer array. Now if you see, we don't have any conversion, we didn't have to do any conversion per se. Okay, we could have directly used this particular thing. Now if you see, I simply pass this character array also. I don't even have to pass this new, convert it into new string. I simply pass this character array, and we got the output as this is the text added to the program, which is the content that is there in the file. Okay, so this way we can actually read a character array. If we had actually read that as byte array, we cannot print byte array as is. Now, if you see this, assume that this is a byte array, and we also have to close file readers. While input stream dot read into byte array is greater than -1, sysout byte array. Now, if we run this program, what we got is address. Okay, address location of the arrays. Okay, so which we don't want. So if we want to convert this byte array into character array, then again we have to follow another procedure, which is not that good. So if you have to read a character file, simply use the file reader. Okay, if we have some file where you don't want to read the individual characters, instead you want to do some operations like copy the entire file, then you can use the byte arrays. Okay, so if you don't want to process something that is inside that file, go ahead and use the input stream or file input stream. It's not going to hurt you. Or if you have to process the individual independent character or display some text from the file to the user and all, you have to read them as by using the file reader object. Okay, so this is about reading from the files. Okay, and then how do we write to the files? File writer, new file writer, we can simply pass the f object. Now file writer has a write method. Okay, we can write a string, or we can write independent individual characters and all. Okay, whatever we want to write to that particular file, we can write. And if you want to put a new line character, we have to use /n also. Now when we run this program and open this, see what happened over here. The existing content is gone. Okay, so file writer, if we create the file writer by using this constructor, it will simply be deleting any content that may be already there. If you don't want to delete the content, if you want to add the content or append the content, we have to use a different constructor that actually takes another parameter, which is a boolean, and name the variable is append. So if we want to append the content, we have to make sure that we use this append. Append equals to true. Now if we run the program, see we got 2 lines. If we run the program again, so we got 3 lines. This way we will be able to actually use the file writer objects to file writer object to write content to a specific file. Okay, now how do we use this particular information to actually use in our words DB? Okay, uh, let me do one thing. Uh, I want you guys to figure out how you can do that. Imagine you have a word list, say words of 10 or 15. I want you to figure out on how you are going to rate that particular words and put it in the words database arrays. Okay, so I want you to solve that as an exercise for today. And there is also some other things that I want to cover before I close these things. If you see, uh, the file input stream and file reader and file writer are good, but they don't do it by using any. They don't make use of any buffering mechanism and all. Okay, so every time it will be going to the file and reading the bytes, whatever number of bytes that we want, but that may not be efficient. Okay, trying to identify a specific file whenever our program needs is not that efficient. So what buffer reader and writer does is they preemptively copy some content to their buffer, and whenever user wants to read or write, they'll be writing or reading from or to that buffer. Okay, so that way whenever user is doing something else, or whenever system is busy with something else, it will simply be writing on the hard disk whenever their hard disk is free. Okay, so the buffer reader and writer works exactly like this, but they provide us more efficient mechanism to actually write and read the files. So no difference. Buffer reader br equals to new buffer reader. This takes a reader. Okay, so we can also pass the file reader object that we created. Now buffer reader dot read line. So what read line does is it will be simply reading a single line, or we can even read a single character or a copy into buffer and all. So read line is a very useful method that we can simply use to copy a single entire line, okay, until it reaches slash n or slash r slash n, depending upon the operating system. So it can simply read the line and give that string backwards. Okay, this may be useful for you to actually do. Okay, for to do the assignment for today. And buffered writer also, buffered writer buffered writer is taking a writer object, which is we can actually pass this file writer object whatever we created. So this these are simply wrappers around this file writer and file reader, so that things will be done using those only, but with more efficiency. Now if we have buffered reader, we have same methods like write. We also have some other things like new line, etc. That will simplify something, but not that different when it comes to this particular class. Okay, so we can use buffer writer or buffer writer to actually do things a little efficiently. And then whatever we have been seeing so far is something that is there till Java 1.5. Okay, from Java 1.6, and even in latest version of Java, they have introduced a new input output package, a new input output API. Okay, so that is typically called as Java NIO. The Java NIO is a short for some people say it is a shortened form of non-blocking input output, or some even say new input output. It doesn't really matter. It provides a different mechanism to actually read from files. Okay, so it majorly the most useful things in this NIO is paths and files. Okay, paths is actually uh, the file system's path. Okay, whatever we are creating over here, f equals new file of this giving the path, right? We'll be able to create that same path object. If we say paths dot get, and we can pass a series of strings, say for example users buddha slash trash slash sillyfile.txt. Now these paths will be creating a path object. So the object will act like our file object, but it doesn't do all the things. Okay, path dot to file. If we do this to file method, it will be returning a file object on which we can do those operations. But that doesn't really matter at this point of time. Okay, so path is specifically to indicate a specific paths on our file system. And another class that I mentioned is files class. Okay, and files class is also from java.env package, which can actually be used to read file from a read contents of the file also. Not just file, we can also read the content from the file. So if we say read all lines, and if we give the path or a string, what it will do is it will simply be reading all the lines, and it will be returned they will be returned as a list of strings. So an array list will be created and given to us. Okay, so this way we can directly read the entire file at once without having writing any loops and all like this. Okay, so this is a very useful classes that are created. They have also created some other new concepts like channels, etc. But for our most of our practical purposes, this will be sufficient. So we can go through the channels and all later if you are interested, or you can even try to explore about the channels and all yourselves. Okay, but these are the major classes that we use in our real world applications. Okay, so most of the works will be over by learning these classes: files class, path class, and then buffered writer, file reader, file writer, input stream, output stream. Okay, so just like file input stream, we have file output stream that is meant for files. Okay, so these input streams, readers, and they are own not only meant for files. Okay, as you remember, we have also used the scanner. If you remember what we used in scanner, when we are creating a new scanner object, we are passing a input stream, right? And if you see, the scanner also takes a file, or it can also take an input stream. If we were passing system.in, which is also an object of input stream only, and we can give a file name, entire file name, so that it will be directly doing those operations of reading the integer, reading the line, reading the next keyword, and all from that particular file itself. Okay, so if you see the files, there is if you see in a broader sense, there is no difference between the files and uh, the other kinds of input series of characters or series of bytes. Okay, so it's just like that. Okay, so this is how you can actually make use of uh, various file input outputs, etc. Sorry, file input output classes to actually read and write the contents to and from the file. Okay, so as an exercise, I want you guys to figure out how you will move your words logic of putting the words in a file rather than hard coding or reading or adding all the file, or sorry, adding all the arrays, all the words in the program itself. Okay, so I want you to figure out and do that particular program. It's up to you which classes you want to use. You can use any class you want, but I want you to do that exercise of moving all the words into a file instead of directly hard coding them in our Java program. So do you guys have any questions? Okay. So excellent. So if you are not having any questions, we can drop now, and I'll be uploading this PPT and recording soon after, and I'll be uploading in the Edmodo group itself. Okay. So thanks a lot. Have a nice time working with files.